All right. Well, hi, everybody. As Felicia said, my name is Sani and I work with Singer Sewing Machines. I'm really excited to be here. Vanessa also works with Singer and she's going to be talking to you in the chat if there is or are lots of questions on like a similar thing. She'll stop me and ask me to answer all of that for everybody. So I'm noticing we got people from all over from the East Coast to the West Coast to North and South. So welcome everybody. I'm coming to you from our studio here at Singer in Nashville. So really thrilled to be here. Today is going to be a little bit different. And you heard Felicia say this is Singer Heavy Duty for All. What we are going to talk about today is what makes heavy duty as far as our machines go, but also we're going to talk about differences between the different models, and also what in the world, why in the world might a serger be important to you in your sewing room. So that being said, again, it's going to be a little bit different because we really are going to try and help you to choose the proper machine for you. It's like, why would I choose a 4411 or a 6700C? So that's kind of what we're going to do today. So I just don't want to have any false expectations for you. I want to just make sure you guys know what we are going to work on. So the first thing, and I know many of you, I'm going to have you put this in the chat, but I know many of you already have Singers or maybe started with a Singer machine. I know I started with my mom's Singer so many years ago. How many of you have had a Singer at least one time in your life, whether it's today or whether it's in the past? I think Singer is really an iconic brand of sewing machine. And it is something that over 180 years, we've had the Singer sewing machine name and brand. So I think it's really cool to know that there's that much history within our brand. So I think that's kind of cool. And again, I'm saying Tennessee, welcome everybody, Maryland, all that sort of stuff. So heavy duty, it is basically a subset or just a type of Singer sewing machine. And you'll probably often see them in this nice gray color showing you the sturdiness of the machine itself. Why I kind of say that is we also have sometimes we come out with a special color here or there. So sometimes you will see that, but our most common machine is in this beautiful, nice gray color. So heavy duty is right there. The thing with heavy duty that I think is really important, and this is true of all of our heavy duty machines, no matter what, no matter which, the most basic model up to our computer model, the important thing to realize is we truly, at Singer, we have a aluminum one-piece housing inside. So it's basically one piece within what you see here as, and maybe I'm going to just get a little bit closer so you guys can see this a little bit closer here. But there is an aluminum housing inside, which we feel is super important for our heavy duty models. What that does is it gives you stability, it gives you strength, and there's not all sorts of course there are smaller pieces, right? But the heavy duty, that interior piece really makes it strong and able to do the things you need. So I just want to make sure you all know that. And someone already has a 4452. So, we know that these machines are really, really great. The other piece to the puzzle now, once we look at the differences, so we've got the brand, we've got that internal housing, but the differences between the machines, besides price, because you're going to find that, as you have more features, as you have more stitches, the price does change. But the biggest thing for me is, what do I need it to do? Okay, so that's what I want you guys to think as you're going through. It's like, what do you need to be doing with your sewing? And so I am going to start. So let's come back here. to this screen, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. And I'm going to try and be a little careful so I don't make you guys so woozy as I'm zooming or turning. So this is our entry level model 4411. Okay, so this you can get at Michael's, and this is our 4411. The big thing about this is it has 11 stitches. Okay, so it does have 11 different stitches here, including a buttonhole. It also has a stitch length control here, stitch width control. Whoops, I'm a little bit low for you, so maybe I'm just going to try and zoom out just a little bit, not much. There we go. So there's a width control up here, and then needle positions. We have 3 different needle positions for our 4411. So with this particular model, again, it has width control, length control, and needle position. And then it has 11 different stitches. Okay, so this is great entry to sewing. If you are not a sewist yet, this is a great machine to start with because it does give you some options. And also, I did this last night as I was getting set up so you could see. I'm going to show you this, but check this out. This is a little denim hem. How many of you out there, I have to ask this because I do it for my husband all the time, have to actually hem your own jeans or, pardon me, sheesh. Either hem your jeans, take them up or take them down. If you've ever had to do that, there are a couple things that I'm going to show you, but the heavy duty does this beautifully. So I'm just going to get started. This is what I would call a flat fell seam or a mock flat fell seam. Do you all recognize this, right? This looks like what is on the side of a pair of jeans. And I'm going to bring it up a little bit closer, and you can see it's got that heaviness here. It's got 3 layers of denim right like that. When you hem this, okay, so I just folded that up. I'll do it again real quick so you can see it. I'm going to fold this up not once, so I have 6 layers, but I'm going to fold it up another time. And now I have 9 layers of denim. And this is, again, what we often want to do is do those heavy duty seams like this. So let's zoom in just a little bit more. Okay. And when I do that, remember with our heavy duties, this does have an open arm. So if I was truly going to be doing a pair of jeans, I would take my little accessory tray off, and I can just put my jeans right over the top. So that leg would go right over the top. When sewing on denim, heavy duties, very thick fabrics, you've got your straight stitch, your stitch length, guys, your stitch length, which is what this is, you want it a little bit longer. So I've got it just under 3. And the last thing, if you are doing a lot of heavy sewing, get my threads out from if you're doing a lot of heavy sewing, you definitely want a sharp needle like a denim needle. Okay, so now I'm just going to sew. If I can get my foot control, there we go. I'm going to caution you a little bit, so I think you can see that. I'm not going to zoom. Zoomers, this is pretty tough for Zoomers, so hopefully you can see. As everyone can see, I don't know that anyone has written they can't see. I'm just going to go a little slowly and take it nice up over the top. But look at that. How easy that was for me with my heavy duty to go over my denim. All right, so to go over my denim. And just like before, just a great seam right over the top of that. There was no hesitation. I slowed it down, but I see a lot of people, what they do is they zoom really fast and then they break the needle because they just just slow down just a little bit right there. This is why we love heavy duty machines, right? Is being able to do this sort of stuff. So all of our heavy duties do this super easy. That interior frame, again, using the right needle though. We've talked needles a lot in the last couple months. So using a denim needle becomes super important. So any questions on that so far? I don't see anything. I'm kind of trying to watch the chat a little bit too. Again, this is why we love all of our heavy duty machines, is because you can know that it's going to work for you. It's really great. All right. So just going to come back in here and place just some regular fabric down. And I think I'm going to try one more little thing. I'm just going to scoot over just a little bit. So maybe you can see, whoops. Oh, I apologize for that, guys. There we go. All right. So these are our 11 stitches that we have on our 4411. Straight stitch, zigzag. This little guy, actually Amanda talked about this a couple weeks ago. This is multiple zigzag stitch and then a couple blind hem stitches, a couple decorative stitches. So all I want to do is I'm just going to start with a straight stitch and just sew just a little bit using your stitch length. So again, I know I'm zoomed in a little, but I just brought it a little bit closer. So see how it's a little bit slower than what it was before. Change to my zigzag stitch. The zigzag stitch is when you do need to adjust your stitch width at the top. And so I'm just going to try and zoom out just a little bit. So here's my stitch width at the top. So I can adjust that to either no stitch width or up to 6 millimeters. So if you guys are taking some notes, this particular model of heavy duty will do a 6 millimeter wide stitch. And then you can bring it close together to do more of a satin stitch. And I'm gonna do a little bit, not super close. And then just so you can see, as I'm sewing, I can change the stitch width. Play around a little bit. And then you can kind of see right there, if I bring it up a little bit more. Well, there we go. Well, I have almost too much light. Can you guys kind of see how that goes in and out of just a little bit there? It's a little tricky to see. I guess a little either too close or too far. I'm going to do that. So you can play around just a little bit with that. All right. So you can play a little bit with that. All right. So one of the other things that I do like to show, couple things with, again, our blind hem stitch here. How many of you have done a blind hem before? I'm going to put that out, see if anyone is responding there for a little blind hem. How many of you have done a blind hem before? The reason why I ask that is I try to do a blind. I don't try. I will always do a blind hem. My sister thinks I'm crazy. She likes to do hems by hand. I will do everything I possibly can. Done before blind hems, beginner, saw this is new, that's great. So what the blind hem does, so let's zoom back in a little bit here. Okay. And this is what the blind hem stitch looks like. And this is one of those great stitches that are on some machines and not on others. And again, why we like, this is something that I definitely use as a, just if it has a blind hem, if my machine has a blind hem, I know I'm gonna be able to do some really nice things. So adjust I know my hand is right there, my width just a little bit. And what the blind hem does, and I'm smiling, I can't talk and do a blind hem at the same time. So what I just did is this actually did a couple little catches right in. You can see how this is working. So when I open it up, my pant leg is hemmed and you can't really see it. And so this stitch is something I always look for. And yes, the 4452 has this blind hem, so it's really great. Basically, everything I'm showing you on the 4411, the 4452 has as well. So, yep, so you got that. So this, stitches like this are really wonderful, and it's really great to use for that. The last thing I want to show you on the 4411. So again, this is our basic beginning entry level. So you can see it has a lot of different things. What I want to show you now is I want to show you about this little buttonhole. I smile a little bit because with a buttonhole, it's always the last thing. So a buttonhole is always the last thing that you put on a garment, or if you're doing a pillowcase or different things like that. But it's always like people get really scared or worried, or I always do, about my buttonholes. Well, with our machines, each of our heavy duty machines has some sort of buttonhole, but a buttonhole also differentiates itself when you go from, this is going to be a 4-step buttonhole, and then I'm going to move on to the 4452, and with that 4452 it has what's called a 1-step buttonhole. So that's, you'll see the difference. So if you're doing lots of buttonholes, you can do it on the 4411. However, it's going to be easier when you get to the 4452. So I know that makes sense. So let's do this buttonhole. So let's come back. And our machines, this particular machine comes with this little, this is your buttonhole foot, okay? And with buttonholes, the buttonhole foot, it actually slides up and down here. So when we put it on, it slides up and down there. On the pictures, if you ever forget how to make a buttonhole, and I think I'm zoomed in enough you can kind of see this. There's a number 1, a number 2, a number 3, and a number 4. So the first thing that this is going to stitch is it's going to stitch the end of the buttonhole, what we call the bar tack. It's going to stitch the end of the buttonhole. Then number 2, we're going to switch to number 2. It's going to go backwards. Number 3, the top of the bar tack, and number 4, come back down. Okay, so that's how you're going to make a buttonhole. How do I know the size of the buttonhole? Well, in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my button, so you can see the button here, and I'm going to put it on the little markings on the side of the buttonhole foot here. So I know I need to go from here to about in the middle of there for this buttonhole. Okay, so this is how you measure your buttonhole for the 4411, and we're going to start with number 1. The width I'm going to make as wide as it'll go, and then there's, I'm going to zoom out slightly. Here we go. So up here at the top, there's a little picture of a buttonhole here, if you can see that, and it's between 0 and 1. And so I just move my stitching, my stitch length into that area. All right, so I just moved that into that area. One other little tip. So let's zoom back in just a little bit. One other little tip for you for all of you is I always like to take my top thread and put it through that buttonhole foot. So, all right. So now remember, I said we're going to start with number 1 down at the bottom, then it's going to go back 3 and then 4. So we're going to start with number 1. So down here at the bottom, so we're going to start, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let it do a couple stitches. Because again, think about a buttonhole, that's going to be that bottom of the buttonhole. Dial the number 2. So now 2 is going to go backwards. So you're going to see this move. So see how the fabric is moving forward. And I'm going to just go right to that where my button was going to be, right? So I remember where that was. I now go to number 3. Couple stitches. There. And 4 is going to come back down. And then that just finishes it out right there. So that was really quick and easy. There's my buttonhole. Super easy, right? 4 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4. But so now I'm going to move to our next machine, guys. So I'm going to try and do this gracefully. Never quite as graceful as I hope. But if you look, so this is, so let's zoom out again a little bit. This is the 4452. So this is, I forget, who was it? It was April. You were mentioning you have this machine already. With the 4452, there's only a picture of a complete buttonhole. Can you all see that? And the difference in that and why it is that way is this is called a 1-step buttonhole versus the 4 steps that we did before. So the 4 steps. So let's check this out. The buttonhole foot itself that comes with this machine looks a little different, right? Here is the 4411 buttonhole foot, and this is the 4452. So what this now does is it allows me to take my button, so like we had before. So let's zoom in just slightly so you can see maybe this a little bit better. Okay. So I open up the back part of this foot like that, and I'm simply going to put this button and slide it in until it closes in on the button. So now the button's in the back of the foot. Can you all see that? And what that is, and what that does is now I don't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4. All I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put this foot on. All of our, the 4411, 4452, and our other computerized model. So I'm going to try and get this in a little bit for us here. Our computerized model also all have what are called snap-on feet. So I don't have to unscrew the ankle. I just go ahead and bring my foot in here and then put that right down, and that picks it up automatically. So that makes it super easy. So that's really easy. It is important though, and April, I'm sure you found this. Now I remember your name, April. So now look out. You also have to bring this little lever down. You guys see that? Yeah, you can see that really well. Is when I bring the lever down and then I push it back. So lever down and then push back. That's what engages my buttonhole, right? So that's what engages my buttonhole. And let's do another buttonhole. And I'll just go ahead and I'm going to do it on the same piece of fabric. So I'm going to do this on the same piece of fabric. Again, stitch width for anyone who was taking notes or was trying to think, okay, what's the differences? The stitch width is the same on the 4411 and the 4452. It is 6 millimeters. So now I'm going to go ahead and make sure. So this one is going to go backwards first. When it hits that, it does the bar tack and comes back forward. And then when it hits the front, it does the bar tack again. And that's it. So again, I didn't have to dial anything. I didn't have to do anything. All I did was let the machine itself do everything for me. So similar buttonhole, right? So similar buttonhole here, but 4-step versus 1-step. So kind of neat that way. So Vanessa, have there been any questions? Do you guys have any questions so far about, maybe differences? I'm going to go through a few more differences here, but any comments, anything going on?
Not really. There was a question about the width of the buttonholes. Is it preset or can you adjust that width?
So that's a really great question for everybody. So that was a really great question. The width of the buttonhole, I made it as wide as it would go. I took it all the way up to 6 millimeters, but you can adjust that and make it a little bit narrower. It can't be wider, but you can make it a little bit narrower for that. And the other thing is my buttonholes, if you can see, you can actually, I think my lighting is super bright on the machine, so I'm sorry about that, but you can see that there. You can see that the width is 6 millimeters here. You can also bring the stitch length a little bit closer. So you can make it a little bit tighter stitch length here as well. So you can certainly make adjustments like that. So width, you can bring it in, and density. So how close the stitches are together, you can do that too. And so I'll talk about the walking foot here in just a minute, Carla. And then I see the reverse button on the machines. Do they have needle threaders? Well, I tell you what, Nancy, you just read my mind because let's start here for the reverse button on both of these, on both the 4411 and the 4452, they're both right here. So they're right up front. You do need to hold down the reverse button when you are going in reverse. So you definitely have to hold it down as you're going in reverse, but it's right up front. So it's in the same place on both of these machines. But the needle threader, I will tell you, these actually are reading glasses, guys. So I have to have these on. However, I love that the 4452, it does have, I'm gonna bring this up here, so put that away. It does have one of those automatic needle threaders. The 4411 does not. So for me, that's a game changer. Having that needle threader was for me, it was worth the difference in price, right? That's up to you. You have to make that decision. But for me, using the needle threader and having that is super important. And I think the other thing, what I'm going to do is I'm just to show you, I want to give you a tip for your needle threaders, everyone. So I want to just give you a tip for it. It is really good for any needle threader to go ahead and put your presser foot down when you're using a needle threader. So I just put the presser foot down. That helps hold the thread so it doesn't pull through as much. And then having the needle in the highest position, so make sure the needle is all the way up. And then the other thing that I like to do with needle threaders is what I'll end up doing is I like to pull the thread forward just a little bit because that helps me, and never works on camera, by the way. You couldn't see me look at you when I said that, but it never seems to work just right on camera. I always bring this forward so then I can pull it back. a little bit. So I make sure, bring it forward and make sure it pulls back. And of course, it never seems to work on camera, but it did that time. So yay. So needle down or presser foot down, needle in its highest position. All right.
Sonny, April is also asking what foot she should use for faux leather.
So that's again, great question for that. For faux leathers, anything, there are what are called glide feet. It does not come with your machine. It is something you would have to get separately, but they are slick on the bottom. So it allows you to go through faux leathers, most leathers, vinyls, anything like that. That's a great foot to have. So that's what I would use for that. Good question. All right, so this is the machine that, again, go up to a needle threader. But the other piece to the puzzle, everyone, is if and let's go back so we can see here. I want you to be able to see a couple things. So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. And actually, if I do this, there we go. Just going to do this for just a moment. Remember, I mentioned to you that I have 11 stitches here. The difference between this and the 4452 is it actually has 32 different stitches. But now I'm going to zoom in a little bit on that dial. And when I zoom in on the dial, the other thing I would like you to see, can you all see the colors here? Like there's some blue, there's black, there's red and blue. Hopefully you can see those differences. And then up here, you can see I've got some numbers, but then I have a red and a blue little symbol. You can certainly, for any of you who did not get a chance to see Amanda, she did a great job on sewing with knits a couple weeks ago for Michael's. So please definitely go back, take a look at that. It is on the YouTube channel and it is sewing with knits. You can sew with knits on any of these machines. The 4411, you would use a zigzag stitch. However, when you get to the 4452, those two new colors, the blue and the red, both of those are to engage stretch stitches. So honest to goodness stretch stitches that have built-in stretch. And that is the blue and that is the red on here. So let's zoom back in, or let's change cameras actually. And so I'm gonna come over here. I know it's kind of, I hate to move around so much, everybody, but I want to get us in just a little bit closer. And hopefully the sometimes when it auto focuses, does that look foggy to you? Let's see. Maybe if I come in just a little bit closer. We'll try again. Let's see if I can get this to autofocus better. I'm not doing very good. Yeah, so with this, these stitches down here, when I turn this all the way around to red up at the top, and I'm sorry that this focusing is not focusing well today. I apologize for that, everybody. You can kind of see there's some pink up here, and you can see some red down here. These stitches are all stretch stitches. So whether you choose red or whether you choose blue, all of the stitches that are in red or in blue are stretch stitches. So because of that, let me zoom back out. And then You know, there are days that I should not run a camera, and I think this is one of those days, everyone. There we go. I want you to see here. And then I've got stretchy fabrics. So this is a little, like you would put a little collar on a neckline. And this is like a sweatshirt fabric here. So what I did is I cut out like what you would see a little neckline. I've chosen the stretch stitch. And the beauty of this is now, let me do this. There we go. I'm gonna pull this little piece to fit into my neckline. Get going a little bit faster. And what I just did, and I'm gonna flip it around so you can see the stitch. I'm gonna show you the back. And you see how that stitch looks, right? So it all stretches. So when we do this, check that out. You've got a nice little neckline like you would make on a t-shirt or something of that sort. So the big difference again, for me between well, actually a couple differences, is between the basic machine, the 4411, and then the 4452 are the stretch stitches and number of stitches, but also the needle threader. All right. So you want to make sure that you know that difference. If you're going to be doing a lot of stretch things, stretch fabrics, it might be worth your while to take a look at the 4452. So, other questions for me for these two? Because now we are going to move up to our computer model next.
Just don't forget to mention the walking foot.
Oh, well, thank you, Vanessa. And I tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to see how gracefully I can move this machine down so we can see this a little bit better. All right, so I've got that. I'm going to go ahead and move this down. And I'm going to bring my presser foot forward. Okay. So that wasn't as bad as I thought it could have been. I was waiting for me to drop something on the floor or something like that. So the question came up about the walking foot, and depending upon the machine and what package you would get, the walking foot looks like this. Okay, so this is what the walking foot looks like. You can see that. And what it does is this piece here goes actually above the needle bar. And with that being above the needle bar, you do have to, so let's come back. I won't change that quite yet until I get here, because now, there we go. So now with the walking foot, you would have to use a screwdriver and take the whole ankle off. The walking feet can be used for different things. Most people use it for quilting. So that's a great thing to use it for, is quilting, but also like matching plaids, doing things like that. That's what you would use a walking foot for, and that's what it would look like. So this model here, and how do you choose the needle? So something else about, we just did, so April, I'm going to have you go to YouTube for this, because at the very beginning, so I think it was in January, we actually did a whole Michael Zoom on needles, as well as what type of needles and what size of needles. So those are two different two different things. There are universal needles, there are ballpoint needles, and then there are different sizes. So usually you choose, like for woven fabric, it's gonna be universal. For thick woven fabric like denims, it's gonna be a bigger number. But we did a whole program on that. So I think that I'm gonna say you should go watch that because we talked about fabrics, needles, threads, all sorts of things. So that might be helpful. So want to make sure you know that that is there for you. Once once we get to a machine that is like a computer machine, I want to just, I've heard people say, I'm sorry, I started and stopped about 3 times there. I've heard people say that computer machines can be more challenging or it can be more difficult to work with. I actually find them completely different because basically, remember on our other machines, I had to change a width up here and I changed a length here and setting things. Let's say I want to go to a zigzag stitch. I simply touch number 5 and it goes to a zigzag stitch. I don't have to change anything. I don't have to change width or length or anything of the sort. If I want to do that stretch stitch that we just did, I touch number 8. That's all I have to do. And it tells me exactly what it's actually doesn't tell me. It sets the stitch length and the stitch width. So it sets both of those things for me. And it even tells me what presser foot to use. So for those of you who were, asking about presser feet and things, it's telling me use the normal, which in this case is the T foot. So anytime you get into a computer machine like this 6700C, it gives you more options. It also has that great needle threader. I know someone was asking about the needle threader. We have that great needle threader. We have a needle up, needle down. You've got a little tie off, a speed control. So anyone who's maybe working with, well, I almost said working with younger people, but I know for me, this is a great thing for me too, is I can like bring my speed down when I want to be really careful with things. So that's great. Someone asked earlier about where's the reverse button. My reverse button is right here. So it's super easy to get to. And one of the things I love the most about this is this has, I call it a play button, but it is actually, so you don't have to use your foot control. You can press that and it'll sew on its own. So you're starting to get so many more features that I think are just fabulous when you get to a computer machine. So I think that's really, really neat. So I'm just going to go to a straight stitch. Okay. The number of this machine, so the computer machine, it's called an HD 6700C. So 6700C is the model of this. And I think it is actually pretty cool because, again, I'm going to just show you. Whenever I sit down to a machine, whenever I sit down to a machine, just, hey, how's it going to sew? I always start with a straight stitch because that's what you're going to use the most, right? So I like to do that. I like to see what it's going to feel like. And that's the beauty. Again, the heavy duties feel great, but that's where this is just straight there. My reverse here, come back forward, works really great. And this is where I am going to, let's say I want to do kind of a decorative stitch. So I'm going to choose, I call this, it looks kind of like a little rickrack. I'm going to slow this down. It's going to go through this, doing the same zigzag portion over and over and over. So it takes a little bit longer. So I can actually press this button and now it's, I would show you my feet, but I can't show you my feet. It's doing it on its own. So I don't have to use my foot control for that. And then
Bonnie, while you're doing that, there is a question on what do the machines weigh and do they come with a manual?
So A great question. I'm gonna come back here because I know you can see how that's just a really nice, pretty. We call it a rickrack stitch using decorative stitches, that sort of stuff. So you can see how nice that is. And again, it was about here. I just took my foot off the foot control and pressed the button. So, I actually halfway prepared here for you guys. I'm glad I do have the specs here, so I can tell you exactly for the two first machines we worked with. So the two first machines we worked with, they are 14.11 pounds. So little, just barely over 14 pounds. The computer machine actually, because it doesn't have all the gears inside. It's got, it's got a computer board. It's a little bit less in weight, which may seem a little strange. It is 13.43 pounds. So it's a little under 14 pounds. So in general, right around 14 pounds for the weight of that. And Vanessa, what was the other question? I'm sorry.
Do they come with printed manuals?
So one of the things that Singer has done is we have taken almost all the manuals out. The reason is just because of trying to be more conscious for that. All of our manuals are online, so you would need to print them online, at least in most cases. Sometimes we still have a couple machines that have it, but I believe these are not printed manuals. They are online, again, just helping to save the environment a little bit. So, all right. So I'm going to come back to here. And with that, you can see what stitches are here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and point this down just a little bit. You may wonder why I'm doing that, but right here, these are more little cards. And as I pull this out, and I'm going to try and zoom in just a little bit for you. And I may need to, I'll go down just a little bit more. Right there. These are all extra stitches for the 6700C. There is an alphabet, which is very nice. You can program in your names, but also all these wonderful stitches. Move my hand out of the way. So we have hearts and we have little circles and scallops and cross stitches and even some quilting stitches. For any of you who like to do lots of decorative things, we've got a lot of different decorative stitches here, as well as, like I said, the alphabet. So you can program in stitches as far as the alphabets go. So that's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and I'm going to come back up a little bit. And here we go. And then I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. And I'm going to try and do something better for you all, if I can get here. Here we go. All right. I'm going to choose one of those little decorative stitches. Let's just do some, well, you know what? Let's do a couple little flowers. I'm just going to choose. So to get to that other area, okay? And I know we're getting close to being out of time. Gosh, I'm talking way too much. So with our menu, I'm going to choose menu 3. So 2, 3, and I'm just going to choose stitch number 17. So then I type in 17. And it's going to tell me what presser foot to use. And this time I am going to come over here. And hopefully with some white fabric, you might be able to see our stitching just a little bit better. But this is where I really, really love to use my little start stop button. Because with the start stop, we can speed it up. I'm just going to turn it off because I know we're getting close to the end of our time here. And so I just did my little flower. There we go. Now you can see it a little bit better. So this is now a little bit bigger. It's 7 millimeters versus 6 millimeters. So you've got a bigger stitch, more stitches. You got 100 stitches to choose from. You do have a couple different buttonholes to choose from, like little round end buttonholes, other cool stuff like that. So for our machines, so we started with a 4411, 4452, and now to the 6700C, so 6700C. You just get more stuff, you get more options, you get more things like that. So that really, that really gives you more, just more. So depending upon what you're doing with your sewing, that's what's going to give you more. Okay, so that's why the price changes, right? It's just going to give you more as you're going along. So at this point, we talked about the machines. I don't want to go away without showing you at the very end here. This is our heavy duty serger. And so I'm gonna try, and I might even move this over just a little bit, so you can hopefully see this serger when I get this set up for us. With the serger, how many of you, Vanessa, maybe you can tell me when I move over here, how many people know or basically heard of sergers, aren't quite sure what they do, what the difference is? I mean, how many of you have actually heard and worked with sergers before? Anyone? I'm gonna let you put that in, so I don't mean to, I guess I did mean to stop. I wish sometimes we could have people being able to listen or be able to speak, but then when we have so many people, it gets a little tricky. A serger is a little bit different. Notice with a serger, there are actually 4 different threads. So with our Singer heavy duty serger, we have 4 threads going at the same time. And just gonna scoot this down here. It looks very different inside. There's no bobbin. There are what are called loopers. And the other thing is we have done a couple serger overviews before, everybody. So realize that again, on that Singer, on Michael's YouTube channel, we have a couple things that we've done as Singer as far as sergers go. But here's the coolest part for me, is when I start sewing, and actually, that's a pretty good view, because I want you to look right in here, everyone, where this finger is, right under here. I'm actually cutting. See how I'm cutting as I'm sewing. And as I cut and sew, I also, check that out. I also finished, I overcasted and made the seam all in one step, that fast. That's why we love sergers. And everyone, you remember this little piece we did on the sewing machine, and you saw how it took a little bit to get that going and for us to do that. I'm going to do a similar thing. So here's our fleece fabric. And I'm going to cut a little neckline. So here's the rib knit. And here's the fleece fabric. Watch this. Because for me, I'm going to come back here, and I'm kind of in a different position now. So I'm kind of scooted over to the serger. But guys, if you're going to be making lots of garments, and if you're going to be doing knits, I want you to really think about getting a devoted machine, which is a serger. Okay, it's a devoted machine and it works great. So let's come back here. I'm back here with us, and I'm going to just take a couple stitches to get myself started and then pull this. Remember, I did that before, but now not only is that faster, but it cut, it finished. And now I've got that great seam here, which is more professional looking. Oh, I'm getting all unfocused again. It's more professional looking. It's like what you see clothes that you purchase in the store for. Versus this, it does a great job. It does a great job, but it's never going to be as fast as what you get on the Serger. So I think, that really is when you need your sewing machine, everyone, you need your sewing machine to start, because that's what gets you going. That's what does a great, seam. You do buttonholes, put in zippers. But if you are now going to do lots of serging, lots of sewing, a serger, I say all the time, I say, I can't actually, I don't like to, I can, but I don't like to create a garment without my serger. So that's something else to start thinking about, okay? 4 threads, you had the question, is it hard to thread? Again, we've done other pieces like this, but let me come back here real quick, because it's a very valid question. If I turn this, it gives you instructions right in the machine. So it shows you step by step. You're going to do this one first, this one second, 3, 4. So it takes you through all of that, shows you how to do each piece, and everything is color coded. So for basically, it's kind of a, I don't know, pink salmon-y color. You're going to come down here and you're going to follow those little dots, and you're just going to go through. So it is step by step right here. So does it take longer to thread? Does it take longer to thread than your regular machine? Yes, because you're doing it 4 times. But you're going to follow the instructions. It makes it pretty easy. And you get used to it. And I tell you, again, I don't like to sew. I don't like to do lots of sewing without my serger. So, and like Vanessa, Vanessa just wrote, the key to threading a serger, truly, it's just practice. You just have to do it a few times. And then you get used to it. And it's just like threading your regular sewing machine. So, any other questions? So it says, should you get both a sewing machine and a serger? If you can, that's how I sew. I would say that that's probably how, Vanessa sews too, is that we have our sewing machine and our serger, and we do, whatever needs to be done, and we go back and forth. So if you can, sewing machine and serger, it's a great combination. You may have heard this before from someone else, but I think about my sewing machine as my stove oven, and I do a lot of stuff there, but I don't like to heat up a old cup of coffee. I say old cup of coffee, a cold cup of coffee on my stove. I do that in the microwave, right? So it's like my serger's my microwave, my sewing machine is my oven, and I use them both together. So that's how it works. So
I would say, Sonny, that it does not replace the sewing machine,
Yeah.
because there's things that you can't do on the serger, such as buttonholes.
Yeah.
And some of your decorative stitching.
Yeah.
So it kind of is the accompaniment to your sewing machine.
Thank you, Vanessa. That's a great way to think about it, because it's a serger alone. You need the sewing machine first, then the serger is, like you said, an accompaniment. It's like you can do everything in an oven, but it's sometimes easier to do it in the microwave. So, all right. Glad you guys, I'm seeing some people getting some good information. Hopefully what we were hoping, and I know I'm out of time, but what we were hoping is that this would give you good information, help you to make the proper choice of getting that heavy duty machine, right? Because there are several different ones. Now you just kind of go through and figure out what is it that you need and what is it that, goes through with that. So thank you guys so much. Next week, We're gonna do a couple different projects, and Bethany's gonna be back next week to work on a project, and we're gonna do a few other things to finish out this month. We've got 3 more Zoom classes for Singer this month, so we appreciate you being with us and appreciate you hanging out. And please check out the other ones if you haven't done that yet, and have a great time sewing. Take care.